Guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an article titled The Plankton Generation. That's women who are barely visible and at the bottom of the food chain for romance just because they're over 45. And guys, this whole article is written by a woman, and it's pretty much singing the blues for women that are 40 and up, or in her case, 45 and up. As simply, they can't get men anymore, and boo-hoo and all that. And this goes into this whole thing. And by the way, guys, this article is from 2011, 9 years ago. And I found this, and I did this on purpose today to show you that this realization of all these things was taking place 9 years ago. But it's way worse today, because what's been happening over the last couple decades, young women have been told that they can go in the workplace, work hard to get those high positions in the jobs in their 20s, and then when they get to their 30s, or in some cases their 40s, they can find the good man and settle down and all that, have kids, live happily ever after. Well, that's a big bullshit story because it's not happening, okay? Is it true? Can some women, obviously, women, their prime, as I've said before, is their late teens and 20s. And once they get to 30, that's when things start going downhill. I'm not saying you can't have damn good-looking women in their 30s or 40s or 50s, but it's rare as they get older. They just have to work very, very hard to take care of themselves. Hitting the gym multiple times a week, eating very well and healthy, taking care of themselves, taking care of their hair, having good long hair. Women, as they get older, they tend to cut their hair and it gets shorter and shorter and shorter. That's not attractive to men. Spend more time in the salon. Spend that money. It's worth it. Painting their nails, dressing sexy. They do all that. Believe me, they can get guys in their 30s and 40s and 50s. But in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, they're not going to be as appealing as they were when they were young in their 20s. This is why back in the old days when women would get hitched in their 20s, that was the best way to go about. But somebody said it was a good idea to wait longer in life, and it's coming back to bite them in the ass. And these same women that cast aside so many great guys when they were in their 20s are now crying about it and basically blaming men because men, guess what, don't want to settle with women in their 40s. If they can, they want to settle, if they do, with women that are younger, in their 30s, or in cases of their 20s if they can pull it off, okay? But instead of, right now, the way things are now, again, instead of taking responsibility that they didn't grab hold of good guys when they had the chance, it's easier to blame guys, right? Every time. And so I'm doing this, guys, just to show you this, what's going on out there, and it's been going on for a while, and it's only going to get worse. So I'm going to go into this article here, and you can see what I'm talking about. Starts off, when it comes to romance, we all like a happy ending, which is what makes a new blog by an older single woman such a heart-wrenching read. The woman, who is divorced but says she would love to be married again, describes herself as being on the wrong side of 45 with a brace of kids, and bewails her place in a relationship no man's land, condemned to be alone for the rest of her days. She writes under the name The Plankton, explaining that, like the plankton in the ocean, she is barely visible and at the bottom of the food chain for love and relationships. Her outpourings, which convey with unflinching honesty the huge difficulties older women can face finding a man, that have caused quite a stir on women's internet chat forums. They have certainly proved a talented point among my single women's friends. She says, I almost wept when I read her blog about going to a wonderful party hoping to meet someone. My friend Ruthie explained, I have felt like that so often. You know you're being unrealistic and that it won't happen. Yet when it doesn't, you can't help but being disappointed. Ruthie is 47 and one of the most attractive women of any age that I know. Never married. She has a son, James, now 13, by a man she parted from before her son was born. She says Ruthie's 47, one of the most attractive women she's ever met, never married, but she did have a son, and he's 13. So if you do the math, that means she was probably pregnant at 33 or so. Sounds like Ruthie was enjoying riding the carousel for a while, and look what happened. And now can't understand why she can't get a guy to get serious with her. I'm willing to bet you, as she said, Ruthie is the most attractive woman she's ever met, had no problem having an unlimited amount of good guys that would have settled with her and married her in a heartbeat. She wasn't interested. And I'm wondering, James, the father of her 13-year-old, was he a Chad or Tyrone that she knew wasn't going to work out being a father material? Who the hell knows? But the point is, this is an example. And this is how things are all the time. I know so many women in their late 30s and 40s in the same situation, and they're pissed off and crying. They don't have kids. They're not doing the family thing and all that. And I know these women have countless opportunities and just jerked around so many good guys and kicked them to the curb, broken hearts. And you think we're supposed to feel bad for women like this? No way. How many of you guys have been burned by women like this when you were younger, and now they're older, and then they're crying, they're blaming you. They're blaming guys because they don't want to settle down with women in their 40s. Continues on. I always had boyfriends when I was younger and assumed I would again after James was born, she says. When he was 3, I started chatting online. These chats were fun and sometimes quite flirty. But if I ever suggested we meet, the men would often back off, saying they were not looking for a relationship. A dozen or so dates followed over the years, none of them quite right. When she last registered with an online dating site, she was 44 years old. And a few men made contact. 40 is a huge cutoff point for a lot of men, Ruthie explains. There was just one I met, and we had a fantastic evening. I was surprised afterwards when he didn't get in touch. 6 months later, he did contact me. It turned out he'd been with some other women when he saw me and gone on to have brief relationships with them. When those relationships failed, he came back to me, and I just felt he'll be off again, so I didn't pursue it. Here's the thing, guys. Let me make this clear. Like I said before, you can get women that are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, even in their 50s, and look damn good if they really work hard to take care of themselves. But that takes work. That takes action and dedication. And a lot of women would rather just sit on their ass and bitch about they're alone and no guy wants me and men are jerks and all that, than actually take some personal responsibility to help improve their situation. But that's human nature in general, but we're talking about women here. And so, but there are women that do take care of themselves and look damn good. And let me tell you, I know some of them, and they have no problem getting guys to have casual relationships with. Okay, there's no problem getting dudes to hook up with, but getting guys to settle with, that's the problem. Because a lot of guys that they want, the top percentage guys that do well for themselves, look good, have some money, drive a decent car, all that, have their own place, they're interested in women that are younger because guess what? They can. End of story. I mean, seriously. I mean, if you're doing well for yourself and you have good skills, I mean, if you are good personality, got good social skills, women like you, if you're in your 40s, who are you going to date? If you're going to settle down and do relationships, a woman in her 40s or a woman that's much younger, 30s or 20s? Now, the women in their 20s, if you're in your 40s, guys, and you are attracted to women in their 20s, you may be attracted to them physically, but you're going to find out you have a whole lot in common with a lot of them. And also, a lot of women in their 20s are very immature. That is what I have been finding more and more as time goes on. And even as the age gets higher and higher, they're immature. I don't want to talk about the fucking Kardashians or whatever the hell, but you certainly are attracted to that body and that pretty young face. So there are pros and cons. But bottom line is, guys that can do it, they're going to choose younger women. And a lot of women in their 40s get so bent out of shape. But these were also the same women that when they were in their prime, in their 20s, they weren't giving us, other guys in their 20s, the time of day. They were dating guys that were older. But now things have come around, and now they're in the situation where they feel burned. Okay? By the way, they can get guys, the guys they can get to settle down with them are either the guys that are basically the lower men on the totem pole. They may get a guy, but I mean, it's a guy, but it's not the type they want. Or guys that are older. So you get a guy that's, say, in his late 50s or 60s. For him, a woman in her 40s, not such a bad idea. But they're going to have to accept the fact that if you're in your 40s, if you want to get a guy to settle with, he's going to have to be a lot older than you. All right, I rambled on there, but that needed to be said here to address that fact. It goes on. Who knew? Divorce in England and Wales in the 45-plus age group rose by more than 30% between 1997 and 2007. That's big. For people like me, I've been married and out of the dating game for nearly 20 years. The idea that there are vast numbers of single women but no single men seems nonsensical. Official statistics reveal that among those aged 45 through 64, there are equal numbers of men and women living alone. It is only in the 65 and over age that the lone women outnumber men. And that's easily explained by the fact that men die younger, so what's going wrong? What's going wrong is that, well, it's not what's going wrong, what's going right is that so many guys are either hooking up a date with younger women, or they're not doing that in general because they've been down that road and they don't want to get involved and get in relationships anymore. They're done. That's what's happening more and more nowadays in 2020. The imbalance, it seems, is because middle-aged men are looking for partners who are far younger than them. A man can pick up a wider pool of women, his age and under, by several decades. The Plankton writes, I have a friend in her late 30s who lives with and has children by a man in his mid-60s. He is paunchy with gray chest hair and not especially rich. He plucked her from a pool of willing women, watching him like vultures before my friend got him. This may be the case in some circles, but is it generally true? Sadly, yes, according to Dr. Bernie Hogan, a research fellow at Oxford University. He pointed me towards a research website called OK Trends, which draws on data supplied by more than 1 million members of OkCupid, which is one of the biggest dating websites in the world. In a report entitled The Case for an Older Woman, it states that 45-year-olds have a much harder time finding romance because the male fixation on youth distorts the dating pool. Call me crazy, but it seems like they're making that out to be a bad thing. Am I crazy about that? Guess what? Young women date older guys. So if you're going to assign blame on the guys for, God forbid, being attracted to and wanting younger women, then it's only fair and equal, because everything's all about being fair and equal nowadays, to assign some blame and point the fingers at the young women going for the older guys. Don't just blame us. Make us the arch villains of love and romance here. The typical 42-year-old man will accept a woman up to 15 years younger, but no more than 3 years older, and the women he enters into online conversation with are among always at the young end of the spectrum. The typical woman, by contrast, states she'd like to meet a man a few years older or younger than herself, and these are the men she contacts. It says right there, statistically, that she'll reach out for a guy a few years older. So she's in her 40s, she could be saying maybe late 40s. But the reality is, if she wants relationships or maybe to get remarried again, she's got to aim higher in terms of she's going to have to go higher age guys, 50s or even 60s, because to them, get a guy that's in his 60s, if he gets a woman in her 40s, she's not bad looking, hey, he's winning because she's in her 40s and he's in his 60s, or he's in his late 50s and she's in her early 40s or whatever. These attitudes explain why many over 45s, including the Plankton, describe themselves as invisible to the opposite sex. Charlotte Phipps is divorced and lives in Newmarket, Suffolk. Age 53, she works as a secretary. The hardest time for me is when I come home from work at 6 o'clock, she says. My 2 terriers run barking to greet me, but apart from them, there is silence. I own a lovely 2-bedroom cottage with a beautiful garden, which I enjoy. But night after night, I sit on my own watching TV. It is incredibly boring, and I am lonely. Whenever I go out, men do not tend to look at me. I've lost a lot of confidence. Well, nature's going to take its course. That's just how it is. But is she taking action to make herself as physically and visually appealing as possible? Is she exercising? Is she keeping herself thin? Is she dressing sexy? Is she keeping her hair long? Looking sexy as she can for 53. Okay? I guarantee you that if she started doing all these things, all of a sudden other dudes would notice her. But also, if she's looking down and feeling sorry for herself and being miserable, no one's going to pay attention to that. Okay? Seriously. But I guarantee you, she can be some dude that's probably 65 or 70 years old. He may want to settle with her. But she has to look at the situation realistically. And by the way, I know a couple women. I have a client, she's in her early 50s. And she dates dudes all the time. But she's not interested in a relationship or being married because she's been married twice, knows it's a bunch of bullshit, and she's just into just casual relationships and having fun and hooking up and all that. Nothing more. And guess what? She has no shortage of dudes that want to go out with her. Okay? Guys are in their 40s. Guys are in their 30s. Even though she's in her 50s. And of course, guys in their 50s and 60s. She's having fun and she's happy. So it all depends on what they want. The opportunities to meet other single people tend to peter out as we move from youth to middle age, according to Bernie Hogan. Over 40s, most of the people you will meet socially will already be in a relationship, he points out. Which is why online is increasingly regarded as the place where over 40s will have the greatest chance of success. Bernie Hogan's department, the Oxford Internet Institute, surveyed 25,000 couples in 19 countries, including the UK, who have been living together for over a year. Of those who've got together within the past 15 years and were aged over 40, when they met, 4 out of 10 had met online. But online dating has its own set of rules, and sometimes brutal behavior. Sarah Brown is 46 and works in communications for a skincare company. She lives in a large Edwardian balcony flat in Brighton. Sarah has no children and has never been married. She says, I keep trying to date men over the internet, but it's often hopeless, she says. I can count the times a guy has seemed really keen to arrange a date, and then with sometimes only 5 minutes to go, I get a text saying, sorry, he can't make it. I've been told they cry off as they have met someone more suitable. Well, says she's 46. She's never been married. Sounds like she lives in a very, very nice place. So that tells me she probably spent her prime years in her 20s being the career woman. And if she is remotely good looking, a 6 or above, I guarantee she's met plenty of good guys, nice guys, that she could have settled with decades ago, but probably passed them up because she felt that she could get somebody better. And now she's in her 40s and singing the blues right here about that. So do you feel bad for someone like that, or say, hey, you made your bed, you got to lie in it, okay? Yet it's not always gloom and doom. Charlotte Corey, a writer and artist, left her husband after 20 years and at the age of 50 started surfing for love online. There are still some very nice men out there looking to share their lives with women their own age, Corey insists. Some other women may be missing out on the chance of finding love, she thinks, because bruised and rejected in earlier relationships, they lack the confidence and persistence to keep dating until they find a match. Lots of people are self-punishing, she told me. They go out with a few people and say, it doesn't work, but I've met so many people who have done it, and it did, and are blissfully happy. Yeah, so these women that are singing the blues and woe is me, they can find guys, but they got to be realistic in the type of guys they can get. And if they get off their butts and take action to make themselves as visually appealing as possible, it will help them big time. Okay, if you're out of shape and you don't take care of yourself and you're walking around with a dark cloud over you, no one's going to want to talk to you, let alone a guy that could potentially get together with you, okay? Continues, after scores of dodgy dates, Corey found Kevin Parrott. On our first meeting, he handed me his card. She recalls I read Professor Parrott and nearly fell out of my chair laughing. I said, if I marry you, I'm going to have to change my name to Polly. When they did marry, 2 years later, she signed herself Polly in the register. Older women may be scupping their chances by being too picky. Ding, ding, ding. In Corey's case, she had low expectations of her initial meeting with Kevin because they seemed to have little in common. Kevin is a math professor, while Corey only scrapped Math 0 level, and he listed ballroom dancing among his interests. Many studies suggest men who become single after years of marriage are quick to find a new mate, while women are more cautious. It's easier for guys because, again, that's men's prime, their 30s and 40s. So for you guys that are in your 20s and you're feeling like you've just been cast aside, understand this. When you get to your 30s and you're doing well for yourself, you've got some confidence, you've matured, you're taking care of yourself, you got some assets. Sky's the limit, guys. The more you better yourself, the more options you have. Do it for yourself, of course. You can have a good life. But if you're into dating and relationships and all that shit, you're going to be in your prime, in your 30s and 40s, and you can then choose who you want. But I'm going to be guessing you get to your 30s and 40s, guess what? You're going to be choosing younger women. And you know what? You earned it. So enjoy yourself and have fun. And don't ever get browbeat and maybe made feel bad because you're choosing younger women when by all the other women that are alone and pissed off because, you're not going for women, your own age or whatever it happens to be. You can do whatever you want. It continues. However, there can be more subtle reason why many women who say they'd love to find a man remain single. Some just don't want to make the compromise that having a man can mean, says Dr. May Taylor, a counselor and life coach. You mean unwilling to budge in their very stubborn lives, set in their ways, and unwilling to compromise at all? That's what got them in this situation in the first place. And unrealistic expectations. It says here, many studies suggest men who become single after years of marriage are quick to find a new mate, while women are more cautious. For some, it amounts to a positive decision to remain single. I contacted the Plankton, and she said the huge response to her lament proves there are many older women who feel just as some do. I have had so many comments saying that finally someone has come out to say the unsayable. The same self-thoughts they've had for so long, but never voiced to a soul in the world, she told me. Perhaps the most moving of all was the one who said she was going to have to unsubscribe to my blog, not because she didn't agree with it, but because it said everything she had ever thought and reduced her to tears every day, and she couldn't cry anymore. So behind this deep sense of loss and disappointment lie many reasons why older women miss out. Male attitudes, the dearth of social opportunities, the emotional investment needed to date successfully online. And many, and perhaps even the plankton herself, would simply rather be alone than with the wrong man. So, no matter how much we might all wish for it, when it comes to affairs of the heart, for the older single women, there just aren't a happy ending every time. Oh, boo-hoo. Life is not a fairy tale. Life is not a Hallmark movie, okay? But, guys, life is what you make it. So, for these women that are unhappy and alone and all that, they're going to have to, guess what, compromise sometimes. They're going to have to take action to put themselves out there and meet other dudes, okay? And they may get rejected a lot, but they keep trying. Exactly the same way that young guys who are at the bottom of the totem pole have to keep going out there and putting themselves out there and face rejection to meet women, the guys that want to do that. So women that are in their 40s and older are having to do a lot with the young guys we had to go through in our 20s, you know, compete against guys who are older and had money and success and all that, but we kept on grinding. And guess what? Plenty of guys, you know, found girlfriends and dates and all that shit, you know. But the point is this, is that the whole woe is me thing, you're not going to get anywhere. So these women got to be realistic, okay? The odds of them finding a guy that are their age in their 40s, if the woman's in her 40s, is going to be rare. Especially the type of guys that they would be really attracted to and want, because they're going to date younger women. But they can get guys. They can get guys if they take care of themselves physically and make themselves visually appealing, as I said. And, you know, understand that maybe they ought to look for guys in their 50s or in some cases their 60s. Because those guys, they may be happy to settle down with a woman that's in her 40s, because to them, it's a deal. They're getting a younger woman. You see where I'm going with this? So, and again, as per always, the fingers point at guys and making us to be the villains for, you know, wanting to date and hook up with younger women, but they don't ever point the fingers at saying, shame on you to the young women taking the older guys. It's easier just to blame us. So, anyhow, guys, I wanted to share that just to show you that this has been going on for a while, but it's even more nowadays in 2020, and you're going to see more and more of this. And by the way, because many guys simply are in no way, shape, or form getting married anymore, they're saying, that's it. I've done that bullshit. I'll never do it again. Or I know too many guys have been through that bullshit, and I'm never going to put myself in that situation. So, all right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.